the Tristen Law Show. If it's your first time here, welcome. If you've been here before, welcome back. I'm Tristen Law, semi-retired pro wrestler, and today, I'm your host. Well, Matt and Jeff Hardy, they just did something that we've never seen before. And what I'm talking about is I'm talking about Jeff and Matt Hardy at WWE, NXT, TNA, whatever that event that they had the other night. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about both of those men there. Two men who built their names in the WWE Attitude Era. They pretty much walked into NXT representing TNA and walked out holding both the NXT and the TNA Tag Team Championships. This is not just another Hardy Boys comeback. This is the first time that TNA-contracted wrestlers have ever won WWE Gold. And more importantly, it's proof that in 2025, wrestling companies can work together, make money, and make history all at once. So today, we're going to be breaking down how we got here, what this means for both NXT and TNA, and why the Hardy Boys might have just helped change the pro wrestling business forever. The question that I'm asking you, whether you're alive or on demand you're watching this, I want to know, when you saw those two, Jeff and Matt, standing there with both belts, what ran through your mind? Man, that's a tough question. What ran through my mind when I saw that? I want to hear from you because you guys know I like hearing from you. Fernando says, good afternoon. Good afternoon, Fernando. You also got a poll going on in the chat right now. If you're watching live, that's the perks of watching live. We're finding out. I want to know, is the TNA partnership good for TNA? Is it good for WWE and NXT? Or is it good for pro wrestling altogether? So when I first saw those two, Jeff and Matt Hardy, standing there holding the championship, ran through my mind. Man, my inner child from 1999, I was 14. The kid that was playing WWF No Mercy. You know, for me, I was happier than a pig in poop. You know, because it shows that the people that I grew up with, that they are still relevant. It shows that the people that I grew up with, that the new generation, people like Jess the Yapton, who will be here with me tomorrow when we do the WWE Crown Jewel preview show, it lets somebody like her know, who didn't really grow up with the Hardy Boys. She probably caught them in the middle of their career. Now that they're at the end of their career, everybody gets to go back and see what's happening with them. But I'll say this for sure, that because this didn't come out of nowhere. I think that the build-up to Showdown, they called it Showdown, tells us exactly why this moment mattered as a whole. You know, I wasn't a big fan that they changed the name from Invasion to Showdown because people didn't like the name Invasion. Like, I get it. It was a tie back. What NXT does is they pull the nostalgia strings. They go back to the old pay-per-view names that we used to get back in the day. The pay-per-view, the original Invasion pay-per-view was between WWF versus WCW and ECW. That pay-per-view wasn't really all that great, right? It's not one that you really talk about in history. But you know what? This was the one that could have definitely been changing the history. That could have been changing the history altogether. You know, I think that, though, that this whole entire thing is a setup. I think it's a setup for WWE and TNA's, you know, continued partnership. You know, announced early in 2025, it was a multi-year collaboration. You know, the goal, if you ask me, was to boost NXT's profile during their CW run. And it was even framed as mutual benefit. You know, new eyes for TNA, mainstream buzz for TNA. And if you ask me, as a guy, as a boy, as an younger man, right, almost 20 years ago, going to TNA needs all the buzz that it can get. Let me give the chat a little bit of love. Maria Garcelia says, first live show, very excited. Thank you very much for being here. Fernando says the NXT titles are beneath the Hardys. You know what? I'm not even mad at you, right? I'm not even mad at you, Fernando, for saying that. The reason why I can agree with you that the NXT championships are beneath the Hardys is because the Hardy Boys have. Listen, I'm getting goosebumps talking about them. You know when I'm getting goosebumps? I'm getting excited talking about wrestling. The Hardy Boys have held the WWF Tag Team Championships. They've held the championships when they were the Raw Championship, the SmackDown Tag Team Championships. They've held the TNA Championships multiple times and held them now. They've held the Tag Team Championships on AEW. They have held the championships probably for every major pro wrestling company in America. For them to go down to holding the tag team championships for NXT, I can see why they're beneath that. 100%. 100%. But I'm going to prove later on, Fernando, and I want you to stick around. Anybody else that feels it's beneath them, when I could agree with you, I might be able to change your mind a little bit later on. The Hardys, why were the Hardys the perfect person to bridge the gap, to solidify what we've been seeing? Honestly, I'm not going to lie. In case you didn't know, AEW Dynamite came on Tuesday. So I'm sitting here in the studio editing and getting ready for today, getting ready for Stream-A-Mania, which is coming November 6th. I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh, let me watch AEW. It's 8 o'clock. But there's no AEW. AEW's coming on Tuesday. What also came on Tuesday was the TNA WWE Showdown show that should have been called Invasion, but they changed the name. So obviously, you put your best match, the Hardy Boys, what everybody wants to see, and you give them a title switch. You give them the title switch. That when the Hardy Boys are, I'm talking too much. I'm going to get into that. But you give them the title switch. You put them in the beginning of the show. I'm not going to lie. I'm not watching AEW. I did watch AEW last night, but I didn't finish watching it. I just can't get into it. I try so hard. Nothing wrong with AEW. But look, the Hardy Boys, Hardys, whatever you want to call them today, they got credibility in both promotions. They have credibility in TNA and the WWE. They are both legends who still draw money. The emotional pull, what has it been, 6 years since their last time in the WWE, right? Maybe what, 4 years since they've been in the WWE? Their run to TNA gave the legitimacy, the crossover that it needed. It wasn't just developmental talent. It wasn't just talent in the WWE in that wasn't big names. It wasn't people that was in the WWE, got fired, went over to AEW, and now they're back in WWE on part of TNA. No. This was two people who left the WWE, who are big names all across pro wrestling, and they're utilizing them to make the whole entire thing legitimate. This matters. There's been no really big names from the WWE. I'm talking about the main roster going over to TNA. But you know what? You got a big name that was in the WWE, that went to AEW, that's now in TNA, come to NXT to win that championship. I think that whole entire match, though, has set the tone. Ava's winner-take-all announcement, I think it established real stakes. You know, a lot of people complained. about TNA having all the championships. Everybody complained that TNA was not getting no love, and I was one of the ones that said, it ain't no fun if all the homeboys can't get none. But I told everybody on Threads, and you can follow me on Threads at The Real Big Tris. I love to interact, right? I was telling everybody on Threads, here you go, Real Big Tris. I was telling everybody on Threads that you just have to wait. I don't think that TNA is going to make the same exact mistake that they made with AEW. And the mistake that TNA made with AEW is that everything was one-sided. They learned their lesson. Shame on them if they walk into another agreement with another company and the whole entire thing is lopsided, right? I think that by AEW working with TNA, it gave TNA a lot of things to learn from, right? But with WWE and TNA working together, TNA now could sit at the table and say, what's in it for us, right? We know that WWE is the global pro wrestling company, period. I don't care what pro wrestling you like. I don't care if you love WWE. I don't care if you love AEW. I don't care if you hate WWE. I don't care if your favorite match, your favorite promotion is the local promotion that happens in your town. The number one pro wrestling company in the world is WWE. You can't deny that. TNA sat down at the table and said, what's in it for us? Yeah, we need the rub, but you know what? NXT needs the rub too. Because remember what NXT was when it was originally the gold and black? And then Vince McMahon touched it and put party colors onto it? Right? When it was NXT 2.0? And then, I used to watch NXT every single week. Couldn't miss a day. And then what happened was that Vince McMahon touched NXT 2.0. Rumen Innuendo. I don't know, I was in there. He touched NXT and then turned into the party colors, NXT 2.0. I stopped watching. It wasn't interesting to me anymore. But now, with what they're doing now, they piqued my interest. The only bad part that they did was that they went to CW, and CW is hard for people to get. But I think the opening match slot, WWE putting the Hardy Boys there versus Dark State, it signaled that this is the moment to watch. I'm getting ready to go to the comments to see what you guys got to say. So make sure you put in your comments. I'm going to run through the comments real quick before I move on. The Hardy Boys, to put everything together, the Hardy Boys, they represented unity. They were able to link the old school to the new school. That's pretty much what they did. They linked the old school to the new school, and they're not that far removed. Everybody running and flipping and jumping out of the ropes, the Hardy Boys was doing that while all the people that you love now that are running, jumping, and flipping out of the ropes, while the Hardy Boys was doing all of that while all of our favorite top rope high flyers were still in school peeing in their diapers. Yeah! It linked the new school to the old school. That, I think, wow. The ball's on me for me to say what I'm about to say. I think the Hardy Boys winning the TNA championships and being there on the television, when they give back the championships to WWE, or maybe the Hardys' contract could be going up and they can just move from TNA to the WWE. I don't know, I'm just freestyling, but just walk with me for a moment. When the Hardy Boys give the belts, the NXT championships back to TNA, it's going to be just as big as Hogan and Rock. It's going to be as big as John Cena and his last opponent, who everybody says is Gunther. It's going to be just as big as Andre versus Hogan, a passing off the torch moment. When the Hardy Boys win the tag team championships, they could have, let me tell you something, they could have had anybody win them tag team championships in TNA. Anybody. When the Hardy Boys come back to give back the belts, it's going to be a passing of the torch moment that signifies in the WWE that tag team wrestling matters again. Let's go to the chat. Let's see what everybody has to say. Fernando says there's nothing wrong with the invasion name. People cry too much at this age. Fernando, I agree. I don't think there was anything wrong with the invasion name at all. You know, I don't think that, okay, look, I know in some countries they can't call the Elimination Chamber. I get that, you know, that people still, you know, they have hard feelings towards it, so I get it. But just the word invasion, you know how many things are invaded every single day? Your privacy is invaded, your business is invaded, you know, your cell phone is invaded because somebody always wants to call you to scam you every single second of the day. We don't really have any privacy and everything is invaded. So, you know, forgive me if I seem a little bit insensitive to that. Fernando said that this partnership has been too one-sided in my opinion. And I think that Fernando's talking about with NXT, WWE winning all the championships. But you know what though, Fernando, like I said before, just hold on. Just hold on. I 100% think that it's going to be within the favor of TNA. It's going to be well within their favor. I think it's going to be a better thing to do than the WWE, WCW, ECW invasion. Because if WCW had won, then what? We change everything to Nitro and all that stuff like that. No. If TNA wins, they still have their own home field that they can go play on. If WCW or ECW had won, they would have turned the WWF's home field into their home field, and then what would happen to WWF? We'd still be watching Nitro now. We'd eventually have to go through and get everything rebranded again. I 100% feel that TNA is going to be on top of this whole entire WWE, NXT, TNA crossover thing, because honestly, TNA can use it. Honestly, I think TNA needs it much. The TNA and NXT WWE partnership. Okay, look, let me just stop real quick. When I'm saying WWE or TNA, I'm using them interchangeable because I don't want to have to say WWE, NXT, NXT, TNA. I'm using them interchangeable. At the end of the day, when you're looking at TNA and WWE, TNA needs this partnership way more than WWE does. WWE has been living in their own corner of the world for the past 20 plus, 30 plus years. They used to work with the NWA back in the day, right? But nobody was really crazy about that. It was hard to watch the NWA growing up as a kid in New York. But growing up, being a grown-ass man, in 2025, it's easy for me to watch WWE. WWE is a global conglomerate. WWE is no slouch when it comes to making money. They got money. Look at their ticket prices alone. If anybody's going to benefit from this, 100%, it has to be TNA. Maria says that Dark State crapped the bed on Tuesday. They botched a lot of the match. They were not ready for the Hardys. You know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. You know, it's a thing though, right? Me being a semi-retired pro wrestler, host of the Tristen Law Show, there's a level of nervousness that you go out there in the ring. I've wrestled people, and I'm not patting myself in the back. I've wrestled people like Jimmy Snuka, Nikolai Volkov. I've wrestled Tito Santana. I've wrestled Nunzio. I've wrestled Tony Mamaluke. I've wrestled, oh my God, he used to be in TNA, but now he wrestles for Sanjay Dutt. I wrestled Sanjay Dutt. And like getting in the ring with those people, it feels like, you know what, you've got to bring, not your A game, but you got to bring your A++ game, right? Maybe there's a little bit of nervousness in there and whatnot. I don't know. But you know what, there's all kinds of things going on. That's why they're on NXT, right? They're supposed to come up to that level, to higher level where they can be able to work through those botches and things like that. But you know what? We always say in the time of pro wrestling, stuff happens. Because at the end, when you look at the pictures, there's no botches in the pictures. All you see is the Hardy Boys winning the championships. Fernando says there would be no Harrys without the Rockers back in the day. You're right. No lie on that. Look, either way you're looking at this whole entire thing, right? It's still about proving that they can still go. And the Hardy Boys, they can still go. When you're... Where did I put that? Because I want to show you guys something. Okay, I'll show you guys this in a little bit. The story that the match told, the story that the match told was that I think it was young, old is still good again. But you had the Dark State come out, right? The Dark State came out to jumpstart that match. It established them as hungry. It established them as wanting to make a name for themselves above the Hardys. And quite frankly, if you turned on AEW to know that AEW was starting at 8, and you said, you know, let me go see what NXT is doing real quick, and you see the Hardys getting jumped by those 4 men, you're wondering, you know what? Do they even have a chance? I think that Ava's ringside ruling, I think it kept the fight fair. I think it kept the crowd instantly hooked. And that was the point, to keep it hooked. And what I always tell people, right? I was having a discussion with somebody the other day on Threads or here on the YouTube channel, because I respond to all the comments. Whenever you comment on something on this channel, I comment on everything. I see everything. Somebody was telling me that LA Knight was great, has to be considered great because he was allowed to do motion capture for all the wrestling games. Yeah, okay, maybe you're right. But at the end of the day, the pro wrestling moves means nothing. It's all about the story. Dark State dominated early. The Hardys played the resilient vets. There was a whisper in the wind comeback. It was a classic Matt Hardy sequence. Twist of fate, swanton bomb, clean finish. The Hardy Boys came out there, they played their hits. The Hardy Boys stand up there, and they're holding both sets of belts. The Hardys holding the TNA championships, tag team championships, and the TNA championships and the NXT championships. That equals a era-defining image. You know, some people grew up with the Hardys like myself. I remember when the Hardys were just enhancement talent, and look at the Hardys now, one of the most decorated tag teams in the entire history of pro wrestling. In 25 years from now, 25 years, that means the Hardys may be old men, God willing, that they're still alive. That means that the Hardy Boys, people will still be talking about the Hardy Boys 50 years from now, like how the previous generation behind me talks about the Rock and Roll Express, the Midnight Express, the Legion of Doom, the Road Warriors. That's just how I see this whole entire thing going. I think that Dark State, though, even though, you know, Maria said that there was a little bit of a botch earlier on, you have to admit this, Maria. Dark State, they earned the respect. Fans now know their names. I promise you, I didn't know. Look, I didn't watch NXT like that because NXT became a little bit too hard to watch once they moved to the CW. But every single night, when I need to watch some WWE programming, like SmackDown or NXT or the PLEs, I end up magically in the UK. I didn't know who the hell the Dark State were. I didn't know why they mattered. But the Hardys proved that their experience that they've had, that it still matters. So here's what I'm asking you guys, and I'm going to go to the chat. I'm going to ask you guys this. What stood out more to you? The match itself, or just seeing that visual highlight of the Hardys, Jeff and Matt holding WWE gold in one hand and TNA gold in the other hand? Matt and Jeff Hardy were holding the belt of the competition. That's what they were doing. The competition. Anybody that was watching WWE in 09, 2010, 2011, when Hogan and Bischoff went over there, yo, TNA tried to fire real shots. TNA fired real shots at the WWE, and guess what happened? They got a black eye from it, and they got knocked all the way back. WWE said, go take your seat, kids. You're not ready for this yet. But now, in 2025, 10 plus years later, you have the ops. That's what the young kids say. Look, I don't be using them languages, right? But now, in WWE, in TNA, and I mean WWE, in NXT, they let the ops come in and take the belts. Look, don't get it twisted. The tag team division is built partly in the Attitude Era on the backs of people like the Hardys, the Dudleys, the Hollies. There's so many different people. The APA. There's so many different people that the WWE tag team division is built upon today. And they left. The Hardys left, eventually came back, and then left again and came back, and then left again. And now they came into NXT. And the people in NXT, the people that are there, they're in their 20s. They use this language. They let the ops come in and take their belt? I'm asking what stood out to you more, the match itself or seeing the visual highlight of the Hardys holding WWE and TNA gold together? Let's go take a look at the chat. Let's see. Maria said, looking forward to the Hardys versus the Dudleys at Bound for Glory. We are going to talk about that, Maria. Don't go anywhere. Fernando says, holding the NXT belts because the match itself was not that very good. You're right. You're right. The match was not great. I think the match between Dark State and the Hardys was just good enough for you to not watch at AEW for the moment. But I think that it's going to be all about the comeback. Who is going to be the persons that take the belts back? That is going to be a question. Are they going to let the belts cruise around TNA for a little bit before they come back? I think the only reason that they got people like Trick Williams, and we're going to mention Trick Williams later on, only reason they got people like Trick Williams holding on to the TNA to the TNA World Championship is because it makes it legitimate. Regardless of what anybody wants to say, that it's WWE, TNA, and NXT, they're going to be legitimate. They're all in bed together, and they're going to be just legitimate. There's sometimes a reason why I feel like I become more legitimate because I'm hanging out with you guys. Maria says the visual cue of them winning the match is memorable than the match. Right. Because at the end of the day, when you're sitting there and you're looking through WWE.com, right? You see them holding the belt. They're not talking about how great the match was, right? But I'll tell you this, the pop was huge, but the ripple effect outside of the ring might have been bigger. But speaking about bigger, something big is happening here on the Tristen Law Show on November 6th. And I want to show you. Thursday, live like never before. It's Stream-A-Mania, 5 hours, 5 blocks, one pro wrestling super stream, WWE, AEW, TNA, nothing's off limits. Hour 1, I'm kicking things off solo. Hour 2, Jess the Captain. She joins me to talk women in pro wrestling. Hour 3, a debate you don't want to miss. Hour 4, our main event feature. And Hour 5, I'm closing it down. After dark, one-on-one with you. It's live, it's raw, and it may never happen again. Don't miss the first ever Stream-A-Mania, Thursday, November 6th, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. in the UK, live and only on YouTube. November 6th, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. in the UK. I'm doing Stream-A-Mania. It's going to be 5 hours long. Hour 1 is going to be just me. Hour 2 is going to be me and Jess. Hour 3 is going to be me and Jess and possibly my good friend of the show, Cheyenne Ortiz. Number 4 is going to be Cheyenne and myself. And number 5, it's going to be just me and you. It's going to be an AMA. It's going to be an Ask Me Anything that's going to be dedicated to the audience. I am going to be opening up the Pro Wrestling Hotline. And the Pro Wrestling Hotline is going to allow you to leave a voicemail. You can ask me anything. Keep it clean because you're going to be playing here on the internet. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be answering your questions. Fernando, you always are in the chat. Now the world is going to hear your voice. Maria, I think I've seen your name here once or twice before, but Maria, you called the Pro Wrestling Hotline and you're going to be a part of the show. I have my 2 co-hosts that will be with me, Cheyenne Ortiz and Jess the Captain, who will be with me. But then in Hour 5, you are the co-host. You'll be able to ask me anything, and I'm going to open up the Pro Wrestling Hotline just for you guys to do that. Yep, so make sure you stick around. Make sure you share this. Make sure you tell everybody. I think that Stream-A-Mania is probably going to be one of the biggest things that I've probably ever done in my life. This is giving me the chills of when I booked my first pro wrestling event together. Stream-A-Mania. It's going to be big. November 6th, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. in the UK, 5 hours long. And Hour 5, it's me and you. I'm the host and you're the co-host. You're going to call the Pro Wrestling Hotline ahead of time. You're going to leave your messages, and I'm going to pick the best messages, and I'm going to play them, and we're going to discuss them live on the air. Stream-A-Mania, November 6th. Make sure you be there. We're talking about WWE's Forbidden Door moment that might have gone too far. We are talking about Jeff and Matt Hardy, the Hardy Boys, winning the NXT Tag Team Championships while they are employed by TNA. We went into the optics. We went into everything else about that, but we're going to talk about the media and fan reaction. Did you guys see what Sports Illustrated said? Oh, nah, you didn't see what Sports Illustrated said. Don't worry. Tristan, I got everything for y'all. Sports Illustrated says that, WWE NXT Showdown results, they give the date, 10/7/2025, and they say the Hardy Boys make history as TNA wins the night. You know my only problem with that? How's Becky Lynch going to feel? How is Becky Lynch going to feel to know that ESPN is talking about somebody else and it's not her? You had other websites say that they are unified tag team champions, Jeff and Matt Hardy, because they hold not only the TNA championships, but they hold the championship of the ops of NXT. They hold an NXT championship. Wrestling media praised both companies for taking the risk. And I think if they were taking the risk, I think the best person for them to take the risk on was Jeff and Matt Hardy. They're familiar. They're very familiar within the realm of WWE. And they're very familiar within the realm of NXT, of TNA. I think that, no, I don't think that, I know that the Hardys spent almost equal amount of time chasing gold in NXT, in WWE, and TNA. They're synonymous with tag team wrestling there. When you look at WWE, you got the Hardys, the Dudleys, APA, just to name a few. Edge and Christian. How dare me not mention Edge and Christian? But then when you look at the Hardys in TNA, you got Team 3D, right? You got America's Most Wanted, right? You got so many different teams. The Hardy Boys have built tag team wrestling wherever they've gone. But the Reddit, on Reddit, WWE making this choice and TNA making this choice, it got some unanimous love. Some people debate about NXT's credibility versus long-term game. Yeah, NXT's looking for the credibility. Sure, TNA's looking for the credibility. But what's the long-term game? Some fans who didn't watch wrestling became re-engaged. I turned in just to see that. I tuned in just to see that. Look, you got people like Jess, the Yapton, who says that she fell out of love with wrestling. But it was one moment that made her want to come back to wrestling, and Jess is a rekindled pro wrestling fan. We just fall out of love with it, and it's something that makes us come back. I think for her it was John Cena. If she was here now, Thursdays is not her day. But if she was here now, she would definitely talked about it. When you look at the locker room talk, Booker T says that Dark State look like stars. Some of us here in the chat, we disagree. Matt Hardy, he even went online and he revealed the creative collaboration between both sides, between TNA and WWE. Look. Fans have become united across brand lines for once. Do you know that the weekend of WrestleMania 24, and it's vivid in my mind because I used to live in Orlando, WrestleMania 24 was where you saw, I think it was Edge versus The Undertaker, but nobody remembers that match. It was a great match. I'm not even pooping on that match. But the match that everybody remembers was Shawn Michaels versus Ric Flair, and Ric Flair's last WWE match. I'm using quotations because Ric Flair's like Jordan. You just can't get rid of him. There was a time that the Highlanders, they were a tag team in the WWE. They got caught on camera at TNA and got fired. Now in 2025, WWE and TNA is working together. What world do we live in today? It's okay. Look, by WWE working with TNA, and I'm going to put them to the side too now. By AEW working with other companies. That's the only thing that tells me, that I'm going to tell you right now, is that by WWE or by the mainstream, there's two big mainstream companies right now, AEW and WWE. By AEW working with all the little kids, it shows that there's no need for tribalism. It's okay for you to watch WWE and not watch AEW. It's okay for you to watch AEW and not watch WWE. It's okay for you to watch TNA and not like to watch the rest. It is okay, but don't shame people or make people feel wrong for what they like to watch. The Hardys have become a symbol of what most of us fans want. We want cooperation. We don't want division. I'm saying this to you guys right now. Listen to what I'm saying. I'm going to go jump into the chat. You've been on the internet all week since this has happened. Were more people emotional or shocked about this? Let me know the vibe that you've been seeing. I'm going to go to the chat. So Fernando's talking about Stream-A-Mania that's happening November 6th. He says that it sounds fun. When I'm telling everybody that on hour 5, you are going to be a part of the show. Hour 5, I'm going to open up the Pro Wrestling Hotline a couple days before, and I'm going to take all the phone calls, and I'm going to be playing all the good ones on live on the air. We're going to be responding. That whole entire last hour of Stream-A-Mania, which will be at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Damn. That'll be at 11 p.m. on November 6th. I'm going to be talking with just you. So if you happen to fall asleep and you can't watch it, wake up in the morning and check it. I'm going to be talking to you. So Fernando says that it sounds cool. Maria says that she fell out of love with wrestling for a long time. It became trash until the Bloodline story came along and I got back into it. But she may leave again if Vince McMahon comes back. Listen to me, girl. I don't think Vince McMahon's coming back. Look, as a person that appreciated the work that Vince McMahon has done in the WWE or done for pro wrestling, good, bad, or ugly. I'm not talking about the stuff that he's done in his personal life. We don't care about that. Well, we care about it, but we ain't talking about that. All the stuff that Vince McMahon has done for pro wrestling as a whole, he's done great things. He's done bad things too, but he's done great things too. But at this point, I don't think we need Vince anymore. I don't think we want Vince anymore. I think the only way that we'll allow Vince to come back is if Vince does his own thing. Why do we need Vince McMahon? We don't need Vince McMahon at this point. We can gladly say that we can move on. Vince McMahon is an 80-year-old man who just had a birthday and gave out busts of himself. He gave out statues of himself for people to take home. I'm talking about party favor. Wow. What a freaking party favor. I asked the question. People have been on the internet. You've been on social media all week. Were people emotional or shocked about this? What is the vibe? If you ask me, I think the vibe is half and half. Some people are saying, oh my God, it's so great for the Hardys to win. And some people are saying, no, the Hardys shouldn't have won. It should have been somebody else. But you know what? I think that this discussion here shows why the Hardys were the best person to win the belt, because now you're talking about them. Now, when the Hardys get in the ring with somebody else to give the belt away, it makes it to be like, well, you know what? Maybe we just need to watch. Maybe somebody else younger might get the opportunity. It'll turn the younger team into the underdog. Obviously, the Hardy boys coming into this were the underdog. It was 4 against 2, and they happened to do it. But let's zoom out. Let's zoom out a little bit. Because this win, the Hardy boys winning the NXT Tag Team Championships on WWE TV while working for TNA and being the current TNA Tag Team Championships, this win didn't just shift momentum. It shifted business strategy. This crossover for the company, I think it's something really big. I think that it raises the brand value in the CW era. I think that it makes NXT the experimental sandbox for WWE storytelling. For TNA, it's the biggest mainstream bump they've had over in a decade. In my mind, in the last 10 years, we're going to go back to 2009. The last 14, I don't know. I'm not doing math on the fly. I'm good at math. I'm not doing the math on the fly. I'm thinking that's like, okay, so I'm doing the math in my head. Let's say the last 15 years. In the last 15 years, the only mainstream media bump that TNA has ever gotten was Hogan and Bischoff going over there, Jeff and Matt Hardy with the Broken Universe, and now this, the partnership that TNA has had with WWE. Maria is talking about the Hardys and the Dudleys are bound for glory. Well, you know what? There's interest now because the NXT titles have now been promoted on their pay-per-view. TNA is now presented as peers. They are no longer the minor leagues for the WWE. They are no longer the little kids. They're now being coached up by the WWE. And let me say this. TNA should be a bigger company than they are. TNA should have never allowed an environment to where AEW could come in and be number 2 and bump them. There was a time, dare I even say, that TNA might have been the number 4 company, the number 4 mainstream company in the world at one time. I think what TNA's problem was that they were so busy trying to be WWE that they didn't know who they were. I will give AEW this credit, and I've given them this credit before. The thing with AEW is that they came in there and they never tried to be WWE. What they tried to do was figure out where they fitted in the spectrum of wrestling. And because of that, they don't cater to me. I am not the fan that they want. Don't get it wrong. If they came to town, I'd buy a ticket because I love wrestling. But I'm not because I just want to see a wrestling match. But I think some of the stuff they do there is goofy. And I'm not hating on AEW. I'm just telling you how I feel about AEW. AEW came into the playing field and said, if y'all want to be like somebody else, we're going to be like ourselves. It did take AEW about a good 4 to 5 years to figure out who they were, who they are. They catered to their audience, granted. They're not packing out big arenas like WWE is, but you know what? One day they will. Because listen to me, every single day a new pro wrestling fan is born. You have to understand that. Every single day a new pro wrestling fan is born. They might just turn on the TV. They might be going on HBO Max, and they might just see AEW, get interested, watch, and just become a fan. You never know. But even though there's good in this whole entire thing, I think that there's problems in it for TNA. Where do you even watch TNA? I don't know where to watch TNA, but I heard that it was on Access TV, right? But where do you even find that? Do they even have an app? Can you even watch it on YouTube? I guess so. I'm sure. You know, so what did I do? I'm a researcher. I went to their website, and I found their website. That's the video I'm trying to show you. I went to their website. Their website is asks, I don't know what it is, TV. It's billed as the go-to destination for music lovers. And when you look at their website again, I'm gonna show you this again. Look at that. They got cooking shows. They got music shows. And then all of a sudden, they just have wrestling. How does that even make any sense? What is TNA even doing there? They got food shows, but they bill themselves as primarily a music channel. And then there's this TNA, this is wrestling. Rumor is that TNA is getting a TV deal in 2026. Look, I think that's great. TNA needs a better TV deal. They need to be with somewhere where it's easier to watch. You know what? Peacock don't got wrestling. I just canceled my Peacock, and my sister and my mother are mad. My mother said, how dare you cancel the Peacock, because how do I watch Columbo at night? I told her to go on YouTube. Had my sister set up my mother's YouTube account, and now she can go ahead and watch Columbo, because now they stream Columbo live on the television. My mother's old school Columbo head. But my mother would be happy that if TNA was on Peacock, I would get Peacock again, and she doesn't have to worry about YouTube. She can't get into YouTube. She likes watching shows on Facebook. Nobody's on Facebook. We're on YouTube. There's money on YouTube. I'm just not making any yet. TNA needs a TV deal, and the rumor innuendo that they're getting into 2026. WWE, though, they finally letting everybody know they're dipping their toe into the forbidden territory. I think at this point, they're not even dipping their toe into it. They're in it waist deep. They like how the water feels. I think that the collaborations may even be internally. The collaborations that you're not even seeing. The collaborations that you're not even seeing on the television. There's the locker room reaction. It's more positive morale on both sides. NXT talents are excited to learn from the legends. They've got legends. They got people that have been in the business for a long time, wrestling in TNA. You've got people in NXT that are brand new that get the ability to learn from the talent from TNA. They get to learn from the talent in the WWE. I think the mutual respect, it prevents ego clashes. I see the chat moving through my peripheral. Let's see what the chat says. Fernando says that I love the Hardys, but at this stage, they should be putting young, hot teams over and still not winning titles. You're right. You're right. But maybe that hot team hasn't come along yet. Maybe it means a lot more for the Hardys to come and win the belt and then give them back rather than the Hardys just coming in and losing. Maybe. A lot of people have already complained, Fernando, that they felt that WWE, it's one-sided, and that TNA has been getting the short end of the stick. Maybe this is TNA finally getting their lick back. Fernando says I'm a little old school like that. That's fine. Fernando also says that Eric Bischoff and Hulk Hogan ruined TNA, and lucky they're still around. You know, I'm going to give you a damn hand clap for that. You're right. I was a big TNA head back in the day. When I fell out of love with pro wrestling, and I've told this story plenty of times, when I fell out of love with pro wrestling, being an employee at Universal Orlando is where I found my love for wrestling. I went to the pay-per-view where Macho Man made his debut at TNA, and I remember standing up on the bleachers, jumping up, screaming, and I don't have a voice. I'm a fan just like you. I became so much of a fan. Understand this. I became so much of a fan that I took my money. And went to go give it to Bub and Devon Dudley to go bring me into the wrestling business. I'm a fan just like you, and I loved TNA. When Elix Skipper, classic TNA video, is running on the side of the cage, and he does the Hurricanrana, if you look, you see me there. A 19-year-old me, maybe almost 20, in a white t-shirt. Young, no facial hair. Didn't even know how to grow facial hair yet. You see me there at the event. I went to a lot of TNA events because they were free. I always say if it was free, it's for me. And I went to the shows. And for TNA to get ruined by Hulk Hogan, that's not what TNA was. TNA was always trying to fill a void. And I think that TNA, from their inception, when they became mainstream, got on Spike TV and all the other stuff, they were trying to be WCW. They were trying to fill that void. Yes, fill the void, but don't fill the void as being somebody else. When I do the Tristen Law show, this does not look like anybody else's podcast, YouTube channel. I'm filling the void. What is the void? I've created a place here on YouTube that you can talk to the host. I am accessible. I've created a place to where your voice matters. Sometimes, and I'm not talking about in the chat, sometimes in the chat though, not today's show, but sometimes during a live show, I get some stupid comments. I read all the comments when people comment on them on the YouTube videos, on the shorts, and all the other stuff. I comment on everything. But I give you the ability to know that your voice is heard. I give you the ability to feel like you're a part of the show, because you are a part of the show. Because if it wasn't for just you, I'd just be sitting here talking to myself. I like it when you guys are here. TNA needed to figure out what made them special. They need to figure out what the void was and fill the void without trying to be WCW. Fernandez says that AJ Styles and Ron Killings put themselves on the map in TNA. LA Knight as well. Let's not forget. He's right. He's right. Ron Killings is the first black NWA world champion. You didn't know. Most people don't know that because in WWE they don't talk about that. Ron Killings came into the WWE in the Attitude Era. He's an Attitude Era boy. Guy. Man. Came in as K-Quick. I ain't gonna lie. K-Quick sucked. He left. Went in the Indies, made a name for himself in TNA, and it came back to the WWE, got fired, and came back. If it wasn't for TNA, you wouldn't know about people like AJ Styles. AJ Styles was a main eventer well before people like Roman Reigns is even in the wrestling business. That's a little disrespectful. AJ Styles was main eventing TNA pay-per-views when people like Sami Zayn was still on the indies trying to make a name for themselves. I say all of that to say this. TNA has a lineage in there. TNA is not just a company that came along and I agree with Fernando. There should be a lot more ahead of where they are. LA Knight. LA Knight was there when Drew McIntyre was there. And LA Knight made a name for himself there. You always knew that LA Knight was always a little bit more. When it was Eli Drake, he was always a little bit more. He was just waiting for that time. But I'll tell you this. Both brands win. Why? Because it's exposure for TNA. It's exposure for NXT. It's credibility for NXT. It's credibility for TNA. NXT is already credible. By putting your championship on credible people, it makes it credible. The same reason why Becky Lynch is the women's Intercontinental Champion right now. It makes it credible. They didn't call Becky Lynch two-belt Becky for no reason. Becky Lynch, she main evented the first women's main event at WrestleMania 35. Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair, and Ronda Rousey, they main evented the first ever women's main event at a WrestleMania. Becky Lynch is credible. Regardless of how you feel about Becky Lynch, she's a credible star. You put the belt on her to make the belt become credible. When John Cena was the United States champion, he made it credible with the Open Challenge Championship. Right now, the Open Challenge United States Championship thing is a thing. And I heard that Obafemi is coming. And Obafemi is scary. I'm afraid of Obafemi. But would you want WWE to expand this kind of crossover beyond NXT? Or does keeping it here make it feel more special? The thing is that you can't even count AAA because WWE owns AAA. AAA is I guess they're TKO Mexico, they're WWE LLC Mexico, doing business as AAA. I think that should they go expand with other people? I think right now, no. No. I think that WWE, which I'm sure they are, should be very strategic when they do this. When I mean strategic, I mean that they should only get in bed with people that is going to benefit both parties. I think that what TNA should do is that TNA should find a top indie fed somewhere and coach them up. You know, for me, it's all about paying it forward. I'm the kind of brother that when I'm walking by and I see somebody sitting there and I'm like, yo, you hungry? Yeah, I'm hungry. I buy food. There's a guy that used to hang out across the street from my house every night, and he's asking for food. Well, he's asking for money. And then one night I was like, yo, you hungry? He goes, bro, I'm hungry every night. I said, oh, crap, you hungry? It's food you want. Got you. I see him. I go inside and order what you want. And he's like, yo, I can never repay. I said, I don't want you to repay me. And so what I want you to do is pay it forward. There's going to be a day and time that the roles are going to be switched. And what I want you to do is pay it forward. That's what I'm asking for TNA to do. There's going to be a day that this partnership between the WWE and TNA just doesn't make sense anymore, right? TNA should go find a high level, a high performing indie promotion that you don't know about and coach them up the same exact way that WWE is doing for them. Why? Because when everybody's making money, it's all fun. They don't call it the pro wrestling business because they're giving out hugs and handshakes. Some places you might just get a hot dog and a handshake. If you know, you know. But if TNA is helping somebody else out, it's good for business. It's called business because there's money involved. Let's go to the chat. Maria says that NXT has had the best women's division in wrestling for years now. It's basically a farm system for women wrestling. Maria, you're right. I'm going to give you a hand clap. Maria, you're right. But one thing I want you to look at. Maria, I challenge you to do this, Maria. I'm challenging you. I'm challenging you to go check out TNA 2009 to 2015. I want you to look for people like Velvet Sky, Angelina Love, Awesome Kong, Gail Kim. I'm getting goosebumps. Mickey James when she was wrestling there. Let me tell you something. WWE, NXT might have the best women's division now. WWE might have made women's wrestling more popular, but let me tell you something. TNA was doing it well before them, but TNA dropped the ball. TNA was known for, you were always going to get great women's matches. When the woman came on, you stayed and you watched. My first pro wrestling event that I went to live, Maria, was WWE Extreme Rules 2007 in Jacksonville, Florida. When the ladies came out to wrestle, we went to the bathroom. It was the popcorn break. When the ladies came out in TNA, you didn't leave. Watching in the Impact Zone, in the soundstage at Universal Orlando, you didn't leave. Because if you left, you were going to miss something great. In the WWE at the time, and I'm sorry, I know it's 12:58 in the afternoon. We're getting ready to be done, but I'm sorry for what I'm going to say. But I'm going to make sure, I'm going to clean it up real well. In the WWE around that time, when TNA was doing it, WWE's female wrestlers were only about TNA. You see what I said there? I'm going to do it again. In the time when TNA was having banger matches with the women in TNA, all the women were about in WWE was TNA. I'm going to give myself a hand clap.
Thank you.
Look, don't sleep on women's wrestling. There's people today that still hate women's wrestling. What's there to hate about women's wrestling? There's nothing to hate about women's wrestling. I think the wrestlers, the female wrestlers, are just as good, if not some better than the men. I'm talking about from the show that they put on in the ring, from the athleticism to the storytelling. You got people like Charlotte Flair, granted. Charlotte Flair got her dad probably in her ear teaching her psychology, teaching her that old school psychology, and she puts that new spin on it. You got people like Natalya, Natty Neidhart, underrated all the way. And on Stream-A-Mania, hour 2, Jess the Yapton, she's going to be talking about women's wrestling. And these are some of the ideas that I'm going to bring up. That there's underrated women wrestlers today that are not getting any love. Natalya is not getting any love. To me, that just don't make no sense to me. I don't know. And now that the door's open, everybody's asking the same question, what's next? Well, you know, I told y'all to hold on. I'm going to show y'all what's next. What's next is Bound for Glory. The Hardys versus Team 3D. The finals table match for both titles. For me, I'm so caught up in this whole entire thing emotionally because I remember playing WWF No Mercy. I remember playing with Jeff and Matt Hardy. I remember playing with the Dudley Boys having tables matches. I got trained by those two guys right here. I got trained by Bubba and Devon. And there's still things that they train me today, that they trained me about in 2007 that I still bring with me today. Things like it's not who's strongest, it's who's strongest the longest. In order to be somebody you want to be, you got to do things that you've never done. Those are things that they told me as a 20-year-old man. And as a 40-year-old man, I still remember those things today. I'm caught up in this match because I remember watching TLC 1, TLC 2, and TLC 3. I remember when it was just a triangle match between the Hardys, the Dudleys, and Edge and Christian. But at Bound for Glory, we are getting one final tables match. The Hardys versus Team 3D, not only for the TNA Tag Team Championships, but for the NXT Championships. Now listen to me when I tell you this. If the Dudleys win the championships and take both belts off of the Hardy Boys, doesn't that make it more credible? When I'm sitting around as a millennial and I'm talking about the greatest tag teams of all time, the Dudleys are at the top. And I'm biased, but look at their pedigree. The Dudleys are on top. They've won WCW Tag Team Championships. I'm only talking about Tag Team Championships. They've won gold in WCW, for WCW. It wasn't WWF at the time, but who cares? Be quiet. The Dudley Boys have won championships in WCW. They've won championships in WWF. They've won WWE Tag Team Championships. They've won championships in TNA. They've won championships in Japan. They've won Tag Team Championships in ECW. The Hardy Boys are standing across the ring from not only their greatest rivals, well, half of their greatest rivals, because Edge and Christian are not there. I'd love for TNA to work out a deal with AEW to where you can at least see Edge and Christian in the champion. I mean, in the crowd. The Hardy Boys are standing across the stage from one of the greatest, from their greatest foes ever. The Dudley Boys, Team 3D. When you look at the outcome, the Hardys retain, and the cross-brand story continues. Don't get it wrong. And all the times that Edge and Christian, the Hardys, and the Dudleys have been in the ring together, the Dudleys are not the people that have got the most W's. So they're kind of behind the gun, right? Devon had his medical issues. And now Devon, if you look at his Instagram, he's been getting back into shape and working to get back in shape for this. He's behind the 8 ball. Bubba Ray, Bully Ray, he's been still wrestling, but he's not a young man. Is he going to be able to keep up with the flipping and the flopping and the flying of the Hardy Boys? Jeff and Matt? I don't know. But if Team 3D wins, you get the legacy exit, you get the titles vacated. Do we get a NXT tournament? Do the Dudley Boys say, we don't want this? What happens? I don't know. There's so many different spin-offs that you can get. Trick Williams, he betrayed WWE. He left in the match, and it's possibly TNA NXT Revenge arc. I don't know. Mustafa Ali versus Ethan Page, that rivalry, that's a cross-show feud. TNA knockouts are appearing on NXT. The women's crossover continues. When you look at the bigger picture, yeah, they already had that Survivor Series match. I don't think they want to do it again. But there's possibilities in the future. For more NXT and TNA teams, we're going to get more ongoing talent exchanges to build the new audiences, and the Hardys are positioned as the symbolic ambassadors of this partnership. I'm going to ask you guys this, and we're going to get ready to wrap up, so make sure you're in the chat for this. If you can book one dream crossover match after this, who is in it? And which brand hosts? Fernando says that he still miss NXT Gold. Yeah, I miss NXT Gold as well, too. Fernando says that I'm worried somebody is going to seriously get hurt. It's been an eternity since they were in a match together on a high level. Fernando, I'm going to tell you this. As a semi-retired pro wrestler and your host of the Tristen Law Show, when you're an older wrestler, you wrestle smarter. They don't have to take that many big bumps. But when you really look back at the match, the ones that really took the biggest bumps were the Hardy Boys. So, and they still do it till this day. So, you know what? God bless them. But I think that they'll be able to work a smart match that tells a story and that gets everybody emotionally invested. If you are going to watch Bound for Glory, the only reason I'm seeing that I'm hyped for Bound for Glory is this final match right here. You know what, TNA? You might have been able to take the money out of my wallet. You might have been able to do it. I'll give you that. Fernando says that Ethan Page versus Ali was fire. Yeah.
Thank you.
Very much so. If I can book one dream match, a crossover dream match after this, who is it? Man, what I'd really want to do, I would really like to see the Dudleys win the belt. I told you, I'm biased. I'm biased. And I want to see them come over to the WWE. And I want to see them defend those championships, maybe against somebody on the main roster. I don't know. I don't know what I'm thinking here. But I'll tell you this. However this one plays out, the Hardys just proved the impossible isn't just impossible anymore. One of the things that we say in the WWE was that impossible. One thing they always said in WWE was that never say never. And we said never for a long time. And look what we're getting now. Fernando's saying that Santana versus Obafemi is the next crossover match. I keep telling you, I'm afraid of Obafemi. I'm afraid of him. That big brother right there, when he come out dances, like, bro, why you dancing? Like you all right? Like I'm afraid of Obafemi. I don't want the smoke from Obafemi. I don't. But I'll tell you this: when Matt and Jeff Hardy's, when they stood there in the ring, employed by TNA as the rightful owners of the NXT and TNA Tag Titles, it wasn't just a throwback. It's a turning point. They reminded the world that wrestling doesn't have to live in separate universes. For NXT, it's proof that they can headline the conversation again. For TNA, it's proof that longevity, persistence, and evolution pays off. And for the fans, it's a reminder that the best moments happen in wrestling when everybody's willing to play in the same sandbox. The Hardys, they didn't just win gold. They opened the door for a new era of collaboration. Maria says that AJ Styles versus Leon Slater. I'd pay for that. I'd pay for that. Isn't he the X Division champion? I'd pay for that. See, I'm learning all of these new names in TNA. There's a time that I knew everybody from TNA, but I don't watch TNA no more. But I'm watching it now. I'm invested. I'm interested. I want to see what's happening. But I don't know where to watch it. I don't know. But 75% of everybody says that the TNA WWE partnership is good for WWE and NXT, while 75% say while 25% say it's good for TNA. I personally think that it's good for pro wrestling as a whole. I'm Tristen Law. This is the Tristen Law Show. Thank you so much for joining us today. We talked about WWE's Forbidden Door moment that might have gone too far. Did it go too far? No, not yet. Make sure you catch Stream-A-Mania November 6th, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. in the UK. I'm Tristen Law, and we'll be back tomorrow, and we'll be talking about the Crown Jewel. We'll be doing a preview and prediction show. I look forward to seeing you next time.
Oh yeah, we'll make it tonight. Yeah.